Before we talk about the 70 to 300 millimeters, let me show you just one picture. Just one, okay? There you go. This is shot at 300 millimeters f5.6, so wide open. Now let me show you the detail on the eye. Okay, so if you're in a rush, you can leave this video because you've seen what this lens is capable of. On the other hand, if you're interested in knowing more about this lens, stay with me. I'm going to show you more pictures and I'm going to let you know all about this lens from various aspects, from photo to video and construction and all of that. Speaking about build quality, as you've seen in my first impression videos, and if you haven't seen it, it's here. I already spoke about the build quality in this sense, so I'm going to spend just few words. The lens is well built, even though it feels a little bit more plasticky than other lenses in the same league in the Fujifilm lineup. And it's got some design choices that I like and some that I don't. I do like the fact that despite being longer and weather sealed, it basically weighs the same of the 55 to 200 millimeters. And it's basically the same size, just a little bit fatter, just a little bit longer. I also like the focus limiter button that allows you to just focus to distant subject or allow the autofocus to look for the whole focus range. And I also like the fact that they put a lock in the zooming ring so that the lens doesn't cripple down as you walk. At the same time, I hate, and I keep hating, and I keep saying it, I hate the fact that they removed the OIS switch from the barrel of the lens. This is something that I hate for one reason and one only. Even if the stabilizer is smart and knows when you're on a tripod, and this is true, what happens is that whenever you are setting up your composition, you're moving the camera around, even if you're on a tripod, and this means that the camera still thinks that, or the lens still thinks that you're moving the camera around and tries to stabilize. What happens is that when you settle down and you just lock the tripod in place and you stop touching the lens, the OIS still moves a little bit around, changing slightly your composition, because it's just settling down from the previous movement. I want to be able to turn the stabilizer off easily. And as of now, I needed to assign a button on my X-T4, which I could have assigned to something else. Speaking of image quality, I think this lens is pretty surprising. Not because I had low expectation, because I didn't. I actually had high expectation on this lens. But this lens is sub $1,000 and it's not a red badge Fuji lens. So this may lead you to think that the lens is just good or decent. But in this case, this is not the case, because the lens performs pretty good at pretty much every focal length and every aperture that you set. Of course, if you stop down to f16 or f22, you get the fraction, but that's obvious for all the lenses around. What I mean by that, you already seen the first picture that I show you at 300 millimeters at 5.6, so wide open, and the lens there performs spectacularly good. And usually for a lens like this, that is the weakest spot of the lens. In my months using this lens, I found out that honestly this lens doesn't have what I would say is a weak spot. The lens performs pretty good at every focal length and at every aperture, and it does it flawlessly. Of course, if you shoot charts and all of that, you may find minor issues here and there, but in general, in a normal world usage, like in a real world usage, vignetting is pretty well controlled, chromatic aberrations are pretty well controlled, the lens is sharp from wide open with only a slight degradation of the image on the extreme corners. The bokeh is not bad, especially on even backgrounds, you can really enjoy the bokeh. Of course, if you have busy background, well, in that case, the bokeh starts to show the fact that this lens was not really built for a pleasing bokeh. It's not a portraiture lens. It's not a super wide open lens, and so it shows those quirky and harsh background. But on an even background, the bokeh is pretty decent. On top of that, the lens allows you, as well as the 16 to 80 millimeters, to focus really close. It's got a 1 to 2 macro ratio. That means that it gets really close to the subject, and this, together with the 300 millimeters focal range, allows you to enjoy some close-up shots. Of course, this is no macro lens. There's more dedicated lens for this, the 80 millimeters being the best. But for occasional use, if you just sometimes want close-ups and all of that, with this or the 16 to 80 millimeters, you're pretty covered. They focus really close, and this is a really good thing. It helps adding versatility to a lens that is already versatile on its own. Speaking of autofocus, I found that this lens is super fast and super reliable and super accurate. I really enjoyed the autofocusing experience on this lens, with only a couple of potential issues that, in my opinion, are more the X-T4 and in general the Fujifilm algorithm's fault rather than the lens itself. One is that if your subject, let's just say the bird in a wildlife photography situation, if the bird is not big enough to fill the tracking box, the lens tends to focus on the background. You need to have a visible subject for the lens, a big enough subject for the lens to be able to keep up with the tracking. Something else that I found, which is a little bit more annoying, is that in a condition when you have, let's just say, a lake or the sea, and there's the usual ripples that happen with the wind. If your subject, let's just say the bird again, is close to one of those ripples, what happens with the tracking is that the autofocus gets fooled by the ripples and start thinking that the ripple is the subject, so it loses your bird and it starts following the ripple. This is not pleasing at all, of course, and I think Fuji has still a long way to get to the level of the best for tracking autofocus, especially for wildlife or stuff like that. Overall, though, in general, single focus, it is spectacular, and as long as you keep your subject away from those two situations that I just told you, even the tracking was pretty good. I had no problems following subjects of any kind. So really good, and it's super quick. The thing is, super quick and super silent. It's something, to me, it's even faster than the 16 to 80 millimeters. It's an impression. I didn't measure, and I have no way to measure which one is faster, but the impression is that the 70 to 300 is even faster than the 16 to 80, which I also consider to be one of the fastest lenses in the Fujifilm lineup. Just 2 words on the stabilization. Freaking spectacular. When you are able to shoot at 1/6 of a second at 300 millimeters on an APS-C body, there's not much more to say about it. I got consistently decent image at that shutter speed. Images that were between usable and really good. And I'm not the steadiest of the photographers around. I guess someone that is steadier than me could even find better better result. But in general, for a 300 millimeters lens, this is a great achievement. Like, there's not much more to say about it. Now, when it comes to video, you've already seen something on this lens, because in my video review of the XE4, there was a whole section of a mountain bike race shot with it. Let me show you a few seconds of that and a few seconds of an Etna explosion that I shot with this lens, and then we'll be back here and I'll tell you what I think. Well, as you've seen, the lens performs really good. The autofocus keeps tracking pretty consistently, and the stabilization works really good. There's only a couple of issues that I found when it comes to video. One is the stabilization that, as I said, is spectacular, but as every other Fujifilm camera and lens combination, if you wanna have a deliberate movement, let's just say you're panning with this lens, the lens or the camera, maybe more the camera, tends to fight you, and you see that the movement is jerky. You're seeing it right now. On the other hand, something that is really annoying, and Fuji keeps doing this, is that whenever you're zooming, the lens becomes unusable because it loses focus, and with a 70 to 300 millimeters, it does it badly. It becomes unusable. This also affects photography because sometimes you're zooming in, since it loses the focus badly, you just lose your subject. It makes your life a little bit complicated. In general, though, besides these two issues, the lens performs really good, and there's a good thing that the lens doesn't have basically any focus breathing, so you can rely on changing focus without destroying your footage. So in conclusion, if you've seen my first impression video, you know that my first impressions were really good, and after a couple of months I can only confirm that my impressions were right. The lens is compact, lightweight, it's fast, it's accurate, it's got a great image quality and an incredible stabilizer. It is really hard to ask for more. There's a couple of flaws, like I said before, the loss of focus while zooming, which is dramatic in this lens, as well as the fact that the camera and the lens fights you when you're panning on a video. But aside from those, the lens performs really good. And I also think that those two issues, again, are not the lens's fault, are more the Fuji's algorithm's fault. So Fuji, please improve those in the next cameras or in the next firmwares. Please do something, especially for the tracking. But in general, as a general purpose telephoto lens, this lens performs great. As long as you know those two things, the lens performs really great. I don't think this is a replacement to the 100 to 400. That is a little bit of a different beast for size, weight, cost, and other stuff. It is good that the 70 to 300 accepts the teleconverters from Fujifilm, but even then, I wouldn't compare it to the 100 to 400. And I don't even think that the 70-300 is mainly built for wildlife. I guess the lens for wildlife is going to be the rumored 150 to 600. That is going to be the real wildlife photography lens in the Fujifilm lineup. I only think that this is a great all-around telephoto lens, like for landscapes, travel, and all of that. Thanks to its compactness, its versatility, its great image quality, and its great macro capabilities, this gives you a full package that you can enjoy pretty much everywhere. I also think that this lens is a perfect companion to the 16 to 80 millimeters for several reasons. They are similar in build quality, they're similar in image quality, they're similar in their macro capabilities, so they kind of were born together, I guess, in the Fujifilm engineer's mind. And also, I think that if you're buying new, this lens makes a lot more sense than the 55 to 100. Not because the 55 to 200 is a bad lens, it's not. I've always praised that lens, but for the less than $100 of difference, you're getting a lot more with this lens, and I guess it makes more sense. I think that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I will ask you to subscribe if you liked it and if you want to see more of my videos on this channel, and leave me a thumbs up to let me understand that you did like it. It also helps the algorithm to push for my videos. I guess that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.